that's for future conversation, though. Stay tuned. So the last one we have, are we up?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Is from Feud on Offense. The first guy I played was, so everyone may know, or if you've been around, is Richard. He used to be the captain for Team England. And he brought a Flesh Eater Courtier in the Gash. I took my Skaven, had a really great match. And we're talking afterwards, and we had a conversation, and I said, we're talking about, and I said the term meta, which I hate that term, because I think, well, sometimes when we say meta, we're kind of dismissing good players who have got good lists, and we say, oh, that's just meta. Well, that's the game, right? So we're talking about that. And he was asking why I'd gone to Skaven when I used to play Corn. I was like, I like playing off meta. Like, that's just how I like to play it. And his response was, when we talked about this, was, who cares what you bring? As long as you're having fun, have fun. It doesn't matter. It would, unless you might have real dreams of playing for the Team England, and that's all great. And you need to play a particular way to get there. But for 95% of us, this is a weekend away. This is like having fun. And you should be exploring the book to be like, what is the rule of cool? What will be really, really fun? I'll talk about when we get to my list here. I'll talk about how I found fun. So a little bit about understanding yourself as well. Like, I used to play State of Darkness, enjoy playing Iron Gods, and you both saw I went to a tournament, tried to play competitively, and I was like, I am bored. This is just not fun whatsoever. It is no fun whatsoever for me. And they went onto eBay, and I said, okay, we'll stay forever. So yeah. So this is the other thing. I think this is probably the most important. If you're just starting Age of Sigmar, here's where you should start. Like, what will make you enjoy the next 2.5 hours, 3 hours of your time? Does it matter if you win? Not particularly. It's not, you're not going to a Hall of Fame, you're playing casually with your friends. So quickly where we're starting. So we're starting with the Gloomspite Gitz. I imagine that is you, Paul?
It is. So yeah, this is my little home in list building. When it comes to armies, I love playing what I want to play as opposed to what is meta or anything like that. This list I built is purely out of a love of the Gitz and their lore more than anything. Because at the moment, the meta for a lot of the Gitz armies is still a lot of squig herds, or it used to be. Whilst I appreciate that, I found that I like a more rounded list when it comes to the Gitz. And in particular, you'll see that the heroes are actually named. And that's because there is
I did wonder about that.
Yeah, there is actually a book out where it focuses on a madcap shaman called Zograt, and he somehow gets the benefits and the smiles of the bad moon, and he becomes kind of almost like a loon prince. And as a consequence, he gets a trog that protects him just overnight. A trog comes and protects him and stays with him throughout the whole entire book, and that trog's book name is Squog. So you got Zograt, the Loon Prince, and you got Squog. So basically, this is how I've kind of built it. And in the book, he essentially culminates a huge goblin army and goes and takes a mountain from city folk and some evil Stormcast people. So basically, yes, I went with a list that I wanted to take, and with that, the Trog boss is in there because it does work. He's my general with Alpha Trog, which means he gets 2 extra wounds, and it makes him a monster. So, just an extra bonus on that one. And then he's got the Glowy Howzit as his artifact, which allows him a 4-up ward save, unless I roll a 1 at the end of the phase, in which case he eats it. It does happen. Now, this was a list that I have used in the past. I used at the last one day. It didn't do well, but it wasn't awful. Like I was saying to Jason when I did create this list for this stream, is that actually the results were relatively close. It was just unfortunate that I played against 2 armies that did a lot of mortal wounds before combat started. Plus, my dice rolling just sucked. So I had Green Crack in here, and there was a reason for that, and I'll explain it shortly. I then have Madcap Shaman because he holds the little Moonface Mommet, which is at the start of every combat phase. I get to choose an enemy unit within 12 inches of him, and they have an additional -1 to their armor save. And then he had Hoarfrost. And then I've got Stickrib. Now, Stickrib is actually a character name that I created when I first started playing Gitz with Squigs. I did it in your book with Squigs, and then I put it to the side. Stickrib is a name that I've used, and he goes along with me in any book. And he is generally a hero who, in my lore and my story that I've actually written for Gitz, he's someone who's kind of bounding along in the heroes, thinks he's all great and everything, but he's not that good. So yeah, Stickrib is a loon boss in this one. I don't have the Gobblepalooza because of the benefits they bring along, and in the book, the actual book with Squog and Zograt, they're kind of fundamental. They're the ones who kind of help bring the rest of the army together from the different avenues. 40 stabbers, because this is a fun list. I want to have Gitz on the field. I want to have a large batch in there. Now in this list, I did also have 20 shooters. I have actually got rid of them because they do little to nothing. And then there was 3 rock trogs and 3 fellwaters. Now, admittedly, I've switched this up a little bit. I took 2 units of 3 fellwaters to the 1-dayer, but in this one, I've switched it up a little bit. I had 1 unit of 3 rock guts, 1 unit of 3 fellwaters. I then have the Squig herd, because that's my Squig element of this army, trying to keep it all well-rounded. The Troggoth's giving me the Trogs on that one. And then the favourite and fun part of my army, I love them. I've loved them since 9th edition and 8th edition, because I'm old generation. Loon Smasher Fanatics. They go in, they hurl their balls around, they smash, and then you sneeze on them and they die. They are the epitome of a glass cannon. And then Grooncrack's Loon Court, which comes part of the Grooncrack the Great. So my thinking about this is, although it's fun list, it can still do things. The Trog boss can buff up the Trogs with his all-out attack. Now, when he does all-out attack to a Trog unit, not only do they get a +1 to hit, they get an extra attack on their profile. So pretty awesome. The Gobblepalooza has a cornucopia of different buffs and debuffs, and can give a 9-inch -1 to hit bubble around them. The stabbers and the shooters have a -1 to hit inherently inside of them, whilst they have netters, which you definitely take. And then the fellwaters can also have a -1 because they just smell. On top of that, if you manage to get their dice rolls off either on your shooting phase or as an Unleash Hell, Fellwater's Vomit is really good. It stops bonuses on your opponent's armor until your next turn, until your next hero phase. And on top of that, it's an additional -1 rend. So these buffs are all kind of building up. Squig Herd, just super fast, can go and grab objectives, and that's 48 wounds in that unit. Plus the inherent bonus that you have with the Squig Herd, that when they run, they have a chance of doing mortals to the unit closest to them on a 3-up. The Loon Smasher Fanatics is why I brought Grooncrack and the Loon Boss into this one, because the Loon Boss, whenever he does all-out attack on a unit, a Moon Clan unit, not only do they get a +1 to hit, but any 6s to wound do a mortal wound in addition. Grooncrack has a special ability called I Dub Thee, and so long as he's within 3 inches of a unit at the start of the combat phase, he can do it to them, and they get to fight on death. So what you do is you release the Loon Smasher Fanatics, you ensure the Grooncrack's within 3 inches of them, he does his I Dub Thee, they go bounding in, they have strike first. Now each Loon Smasher Fanatic has D6 attacks, 4s, 3s, -2 for D3 damage. You then get Loon Boss to do all-out attack on them, which means it's 3s and 3s. If you've been very lucky, which I did once, Hoarfrost off with the Madcap Shaman, giving them perhaps an easier hit, an easier wounding, perhaps on 2s or even 1s. You could have 10 units of Loon Smasher Fanatics doing 10 d6 damages, hitting on 3s, wounding on perhaps 1s or 2s if you get the Hoarfrost off, normally it's 2 rend, but if you take in Moonface Moment, it's -3. If you're talking about Fellwaters, it's -4. D3 damage each for each attack. They can clear units. I have made 2 Ogre Mammoths retreat when they've been in combat with the Loon Smasher Fanatics. So yeah, they can do things. It's a fun list though. It's not meta by any means. The stabbers die really easily. The shooters do diddly squat. The Squig Herd can fall epically fast because they have a 6-up save, and the Loon Smashers, When they have a 6-up save, as I said, you sneeze on them, they die. So this is a list I just love. It just looks great on the battlefield. Could do things. Variably doesn't, though. And that's it.
That is a great write-up of this list. It is lots and lots of fun. I've actually not played this list of yours. I've played parts of this list elsewhere. Yeah, Loon Smasher Fanatics, the way you say it. If they hit your units, your car will break down on the way home. They hit that hard, so trying to stay away from. Jason, you have played this list. Tell us
Not this
about it.
exact list, but something
Oh,
very
okay.
similar.
Basically.
It's a lot of these things. Fell waters, I'm always scared of. No,
Yeah.
no positives to save. -1 to save additional on top of that. So you're just falling over at that stage. The rest of it is just a weird, fun little list to play. It's fun to play against, to see on the field, because it's just so different. They have the ability to absolutely destroy something, but like Paul says, you pretty much breathe on them and they start falling over or running away.
Yeah.
It's just a fun list to play against, and you have still got a good punch there as well.
Yeah.
Especially with those Loom Smasher, they are just scary when they jump out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
was it up 60 attacks?
They can get up to 60. Yes, up to 60 attacks. And when I've done the rolls and everything, they vary between 30 and 45 is normally how many I get. So, yeah.
It just lifts units.
Yeah, and before we move on to your list, here's the most important rule, which is when you're describing a list, you're doing it with a smile on your face, which is the point in this list. We should have fun talking about the nonsense it does, how it looks on the battlefield, when it hits, but also, again, advice I give people is find the list you don't mind losing with, and you'll never have a bad game. And that, from what you're saying, is it hits that rule. You even when you lose, it's like, I've still done something, and that is cool. Jason, we're back to your sea fish. Let me correct that. All fish are sea fish. Actually, no, I guess river fish. Let's not get into that. Fish list.
they're deep sea, so they're sea. But anyway, this is very similar to a tournament list I took. Oh, when did I take IDK to a tournament? A good little while ago.
Yeah.
Apart from with points reductions, I've got an extra 10 thralls in there. I got 120 points of reduction, so I can get a whole other unit in there.
There's a like discount on everything. But, oh my god.
Oh, we needed it. But anyway,
that's fair.
This list is what I call fun because it's such a techie, confusing list, technical list to everyone, but it works so well. I love it. So let's go through it. Nautila, the sub-faction Nautila means the Leviathan's mount attacks, the main attacks, are -3 rend. That's his monstrous action. It just makes his mount attacks -3 rend instead of -1. Done.
Oh my god.
You do it every time. And those attacks, you're looking at 3 I think it's 3 up to 5 damage each. So, when he hits damn hard. Okay, go from the top. Achillean King. Pretty much exactly as I spoke about him before. Unstoppable Fury. I didn't actually mention his mount trait last time, but that's -1 to hit within 3 inches of him.
Okay.
It's just the standard one you take with him, pretty much. The ability to get high tide to D3 units again. It's just a nice little. He sees you, he jumps over you because he's 14-inch flying move and 12-inch charge, possibly run and charge if you do it on turn 2. He, like Paul, it has failed on me horrifically before, but effectively he sees your line and goes, "No, you know what? I'm just going over there behind your line," and just clears out those little heroes you hide at the back. He can clear all those in one go. Thrallmaster gives bonuses to the Thralls. He can give it to the Reavers, but because it's melee, it's mainly Thralls. Can I remember exactly what he does? No, because it's been such a long time since I've used him, because my new list doesn't include him. But it's things like, I think it was 6s on the hit do mortals instead of, something like that.
Yeah.
He's just a nice little buff piece for Thralls. So,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it's sixes explode into 2 hits, or reroll hits of 1 for attacks, or
On Thralls.
On Thralls. It's any Namati unit, so technically it's Reavers as well, but it's only melee hits, so you would use it on the Thralls.
That's why he's a
You
Thrall
can-
master, not a Thrall supervisor. He actually matters around the Thralls.
Yeah, and his attacks are actually pretty good. I mean, his normal is forget his little companion now, not a mount companion. But anyway, 5 attacks, 3 threes, -1 for 2. So he's not that bad. He's not amazing, but he's not that bad. So yeah, the main reason you keep him is just because buffing up the Thralls. The Soul Render. He brings back D3 models, Thralls, or Reavers, but basically one of those two, at the end of both battle shock phases. He has, yes, I mean, he can bring back, he can really help to keep those units alive, because they're not the most survivable. He has decent enough attacks. One of his fun little abilities is called the Hangman's Noose, which, let me read it exactly out as it is, because it can be confusing, this one. You roll a dice. You pick an enemy model that has a wound characteristic of 7 or less and does not have a mount. So minor heroes generally, or little things like that. And within 3 inches, so basically you've got to do it close, but that's fine. And roll 2d6. If I roll higher than your wounds characteristic, that model's slain. Done. Straight out, just dead. So there's just little fun bits like that.
Yeah.
And he has a 5+ ward, but that's the thing. And Lotan. We spoke about him before. +1 ward, +1 wound bubble around him for IDK units. So effectively, Thralls and it's for melee, so it'll be Thralls once again.
Yeah.
So really, you're buffing up your Thralls. With all that, I'll quickly jump to the Leviathan, because one of its things is I've given it the mount trait Reverberating Carapace, which increases it's called Void Drum. Its ability from 12 inches to 15 inches, so it's a 15-inch bubble around it. +1 to save for, in this list, everything but itself, if you're wholly within that 15-inch bubble. And if the enemy unit is within that bubble, it's +1 to hit against them for Namati, so Thralls and Reavers. That's for Reavers shooting as well. So you can charge them into an enemy unit, and I get +1 to hit from the other side of the board into them. And then obviously he just hits damn hard because of the extra rend, basically. Beautiful model. When you say about a centerpiece to the army, this one stands a good 10 inches tall. It is, when it's there, it's on the board.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and then he hits he kills anything he touches, pretty much. Yeah. He died. I mean, he starts on he's a 2-up save. It does degrade as he gets hurt, so he is hard to kill. But then 16 wounds with no ward save. That's the one problem with IDK at the minute. It's limited ward save, so you chuck mortals at them, they fall over. Okay, so I know I just jumped over the battle line there. The Alapexes we spoke about. On this list, I took 2 singular Alapexes, mainly because of what I could do with them, give me a bit of flexibility. Not how I'd necessarily run it if I had a slightly different list, but they're fun to play with. Seeing sharks on the field, they're just really fun, little fast, shooty, attacky sort of creatures. They're great. The king gives +1 to hit for Achillean units, so he would run with the sharks to give +1 to hit. So for the non-mount, so you're looking at 2s and 3s for the guys on top, basically. So it's really good. The eels, the Achillean Morsar Guard. On the charge, they have alright attacks, something like 3 attacks, 3 threes, -2 for 2. When they're not on the charge, they lose quite a lot of that. But the main reason I take them is just for the fun of their ability. They charge into a battle line unit, or a unit. Doesn't have to be a battle line, but you'd use it for. I'm looking at Mike, so clan rats. I roll 1 dice for every model in the opponent enemy unit at the end of the charge. It says, add 1 if you have more than 3 models in there. On a 1 to 2, nothing happens. On a 3 to 4, you suffer a mortal. On a 5 to 6, you suffer D3 mortals. So they can effectively, at the end of the charge, wipe a chaff unit in 1 hit before you even start the attack. It's really good fun to play with them. I used it a few times in the tournament. It worked well. It's just I have to be against the right units to play against. So, yeah. Okay. So, Reavers. 2 shots each. So, 18-inch range on these guys. Sorry, 18-inch range on these guys. 2 shots each. 3s, -1 for 1. Fairly standard, simple shooting, but nice shooting. When you've got the enemy within the Leviathan, that's 2s and 3s, -1 for 1. What you would do is they have their terrain piece called the shipwreck. What's it? Creeping Gloomtide. Yeah, thank you. Gloomtide shipwreck. It's the shipwreck. Basically, you hide them in there, give them +1 to save, -1 to hit against them, and they can sit and just shoot across the board. Yeah. They don't go anywhere. Which comes into effect of the Soul Renders artifact, the Rune of the Surging Gloomtide. Means I get to chuck a second shipwreck out at some point.
Oh, okay, so that's quite,
So I can technically have 2 terrain pieces, so I could hide the other 10 Thralls in there if I wanted to give them a bit more survivability. They can't shoot, obviously, Thralls, but it gives them a 5+ ward. It gives them +1 to save, so then suddenly they become a lot more survivable and just sit on an objective. Okay, Thralls. I was not the biggest fan of them when I first saw them. Now I've actually used them a few times. I know how freaking dangerous they are, and they are a laugh to play with because they're a bit swingy, like a lot of fun units. So the Thralls are little men, 1 wound, 5+ save, nothing that special. Each man, 2 attacks, 3 3s, -1 for 1. But it's only when you've got the buffs off and everything that you suddenly start realizing what they can do. So, Leviathans, +1 to hit if you're fighting that, if you within that bubble. Suddenly get +1 to hit. If you have Lotan with them, +1 to wound. And their ability, if the target opponent has a wounds characteristic of 1, I add 1 to my attack. If they have a wounds characteristic of 3 or more, I add 1 to the damage. So against 1 wound models, that 20-man unit, because it's 2-inch range attack, so you can get a fair chunk of them in. I'm looking at normally getting about 30-odd attacks, 2s, -1 for 1, or probably around about 25 attacks, something like that, 2s, -1 for 2. So they're just fun little units to use. They die really quickly, I have to admit it, but they are really fun to play with while they're alive. And 6-inch move, they can move fast enough, and they've, like I said, I've told you before, with the tides, run and charge on turn 2, +1 to save on turn 1, so you're just sort of stacking everything up as you go. And then strike first. If they survive to turn 3, strike first.
Yeah.
And like I said, for me, the reason why I love this list so much, it's just the techie side of it. You've got to keep certain units within certain ranges of other units just to get the buffs working. And when they do, the opponent knows about it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm similar to you when I played Khorne. It's the tech that I liked in the old book. I think there's a little less tech in the current book. The old book, I had to plan mechanisms with dice, do all that stuff to kind of get it working. But Paul, you've played this list before. Apparently you know how the Thralls feel.
So Jason did a lot of testing with me on his list, teching on it, and like you said, it's a nice rounded list, and it's cool to see on the battlefield. But at the same time, when you have got perhaps a Johnny style player like Jason, who has really worked out the buffs into his army and everything, when it does hit hard. Like I've always been kind of a pro myself of Leviathan when it was at 500 points and saying, yeah, that's about right for it. And as it's been going down, I've been like, really going down? Should it be going down? Because it is kind of a bit scary and what it can do for the army. Overall, though, you don't feel bad playing against Army because when it hits hard, and that's what it's meant to do. But it's not impossible to punch back. And so it's a pleasant experience, if that sounds right.
It's not a list I would take into a future tournament, but I loved playing this list.
Yeah.
Well, I think that speaks to what I'm saying is like not all lists should be tournament lists. One, you'll never learn. You won't learn about those little things that work in a list. You need to have these kind of things, but it's also about having fun, like doing it, finding out what you enjoy about the game. 100%. Like I've not played your IDK, but when I have played IDK players, they've always enjoyed it. The stuff it does right for them. Like don't get me wrong, the ally packs which you showed earlier terrifies me. I don't know. Then the elite, the king again is a great piece that when it hits, it hits. Yeah, sometimes it gets slapped down. It's game over for it, but terrifying. But yeah, but as I say, it's about that.
It's how you're
stuff.
playing. That's all the main king. 7 wounds on a 3-up save, but one of the rules of IDK shooting, you can only shoot the nearest unit, so you just got to learn positioning of where to put him and when to ping his ability and start actually moving in, which that tournament did it for me, and now hopefully I know a bit better.
Absolutely. Do you want to put my Skaven list?
Yeah, there you
go. Right. So before we start this one, we've talked about psychological profiles. I dread to think what the one is that you're about to hear about that I have for my Skaven list. Before it goes, I don't think anyone who's ever played me with my Skaven list will never see me with a frown on my face, no matter how bad it's going. I love this list. I love the Skaven. I had a hard time with them when this book first came out, trying to work out how I want to do it. But now I've found what I enjoy about the list. It's a little bit of practice. So, how I like to play this Skaven is basically you're killing all my stuff, but it's okay because for me, nothing important's dying. It's just the clan. that sacrifice of lives. I had it with in Ben on Tuesday using my night runners. It's like when they come in, it's like it's okay. No one's dying. Who matters? And that's how I play it. Cycles of sacrifice. So I keep my important stuff alive, like doing really, really silly stuff. My favorite grand strategy to take at the moment is Slaughter of Sorcery, kill all the wizards. Every time I say that, people look at my list and be like, "You've got 2 wizards?" And it's like, "Yep." I have 2 traitors who are going to get thrown into combat at some stage. I played an Iron Jaws player where I literally threw them both into brutes on turn 5 and was like, "Sorry guys, I need you to die." So in you go. And that is kind of what I really enjoy about the Skaven play. It's all about screening, which is basically sacrifices. Now, one thing missing on this is a warp grinder. This is a 1,920 points. There'll be a warp grinder on there. The warp grinder, as you can imagine, goes with clan rats. That shocks people. They pop out. You've got a 26-inch space that you can put a line of clan rats. With night runners behind them, then gutter runners. It's going to take you 3 turns to get to my storm fiends, my acolytes, which are my killers. Yeah. Storm fiends with a war spark token are insanely strong. They are 620 points. They are 620 points.
Yeah.
Acolytes ridiculously undercosted. 70 points of 5. So this would be 15 attacks. 2 3s and 3s. If you're looking at something with 10 models, which is all I ever focus them on, is 3s and 2s, -1 with a Wart Spark, D3 +1 damage. Like they are moving stuff. And then with that, you get pick 3, and then the bombardiers themselves, you can do D3 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1, up to 4, baseline 3, Wart Spark is 4.
Wow.
Of course, you can overcharge for D6 attacks, and every 1 you roll is D3 mortals back on the hit roll, which for most of the time it is well, why do you ever do that? I need to kill my wizards. You're overcharged all the time. Everything is being overcharged, and which I kind of we spoke about battle tactics in that you want to get your battle tactics around the stuff that you're doing anyway. That my grand strategy is I enjoy killing my own stuff. So if I can get awarded by it, by overcharging everything, again, in the last tournament with a 3-2, I was overcharging everything. I was casting spells on myself to make sure I took the D3 mortal wounds to keep going, just to get through my own wizards. It was loads of fun. Night runners and gutter runners are more techy and are more meta being that they are appear in a good list. Because pre-game 2d6 moves means I can move my screens up very quickly before anyone picks priority. Now I'm a 2-drop, so I will hopefully get to pick anyway. What it means is even if you get across the board and start killing my stuff, you're only killing night runners. And then gutter runners going to pop behind, which is 15 attacks, 60s on mortal wounds. And you wouldn't have got to my acolytes, my storm fiends, or my 2 hell pit abominations. Hell pit abominations are interesting. They're good, but people want to get rid of them quickly because they're hell pit abominations. I love the models. That's why they're in my list. I've just ordered another one because I think they are the best models. There's a lot of Skaven got a lot of good models, but I love my hell pits. I took him with Nighthorn yesterday. We had a weird situation where I think Ben had 1 command point left. I charged in my hell pit. It's like, do you want to unleash hell or do you want to do the ward here? Because it's every model within 3 inches gets a dice. On a 2-up, it's a mortal wound, and I'm re-rolling. So with his unit of 20 Grimghast, it's like I had 11. It's like you've got to take 11 mortal wounds, and then you've got the rest of his stats coming. So it's a great distraction piece because you have to get rid of it or it's going to hurt you. In this list, it's great because if you're getting rid of that, you're not getting rid of my acolytes and you're not getting rid of my storm fiends. And I had 2 of them simply because I'm just that kind of person that I just want 2 of them. So essentially, warp grinder pops out, creates a line of clan rats. Your night runners run behind them, then your gut runners pop up behind them, and your hell pits rush up as well. So it's a big rush at the front, whilst all the important stuff stays back and it starts picking off. So my early game is that. My mid game is Stormfiends and Acolytes. My late game is whatever I haven't killed. Try to get some points. But I generally have a lot of fun with this. Now, a little bit of mistake on here, or we have the artifact as the file accumulator, because before there's a hell pit, it was a doom wheel. Doom wheels are the whole community wants doom wheels to be good. They're not great at the moment, but movements 4d6, file accumulator lets you double it. My first roll, I rolled a 7, so I got a 14-inch move. I didn't take it. I was like, that's not what I really wanted. He doesn't get to do stuff. The second time, I got a 44-inch move. And you run over everything, give it the D3 mortal wounds on a 2-up, then you charge and pile in for more D3 mortal wounds, and then you run it off because it is just a nonsense piece of work. But it's that kind of fun for nonsense. It's just go out and just do stuff. I couldn't keep in this one because I want 2 hell pits in my next. This is why I'm moving towards my tournament, as in to have fun at a tournament. But that said, it hits hard. It is a really, really tough list. If you ever had to face down 6 Storm Fiends, the Rattling Cannons alone, on average, I roll about 20 to 23 attacks, 2 damage on. You can get down to 2s and 2s. So that's a maximum of 44 damage. It's a tough. Wind launchers don't need the eye line of sight, so they can be shooting heroes from across the board or anyone across the board to start getting battle shock going. And then acolytes are just, and all this gets to go through gnaw holes. So that's fun for everybody. but that's what you'll never. I'll be very surprised if you ever saw a sad face playing Skaven because if stuff's dying. I'm winning. You're killing all the traitors. All these rats that were waiting to betray me are getting killed. So it serves them all right. But any questions about it? I don't think either of you play my Storm Fiends. Jason, you played my last game on this, which was well, you saw. I enjoyed that until I found out that I had to face of Mortis Guards.
I've played you with Storm Fiends.
Oh, have you?
When we had Bounty Hunters, still remember you had Thankor in there. And
yeah,
long time ago. You dropped your 6 Storm Fiends behind my line through a gnaw hole. You killed Archon, great. And then you sat with a group of Mortek who just died and came back, and it just you couldn't get through them. I couldn't really get to you because I was so slow, but we just sort of stalemated to the whole game there.
Yeah,
And,
so when
mm,
I first started Skaven, my main list was Thanquol, Graces, Stormfiends, Clan Rats, and Acolytes. And that's when I got my first bit of advice is screens. Everything in Skaven is screens. And I didn't take enough screens. Thanquol is great, but he's not worth the points. Like 400 points is 80 Clan Rats. Like +3 is great. 2 command rolls is great. I've got a list which is for 120 Clan Rats. And that Thanquol is great in because I can rally an all-out defense 2 units, and then inspiring presence 2 units, and Claw Lord takes care of 1. So he's a play in those kind of lists. Off of this, it's just too many points. But that was my first mistake with Skaven. Was thinking Thanquol and the Vermin Lords are worth their points, and I in some lists they are, but you have to build specific lists, and I didn't want to do that. I want help it.
Yeah.
I want. Yeah, and I get what I want because I'm paying the fucking money for them. Yeah, so yeah, any thoughts on this?
For me, I love Skaven. It's very similar to the Gitz in terms of the ability to mess around with different things, and you don't have to select one faction. You get bonuses if you're taking the heroes, and if you take more heroes, you get even more bonuses. So I do enjoy Skaven, and just the pleasure of it. You know, you're taking Skaven, you know that either you're going to do really well or you're going to kill yourself. The enemy can stand in his territory and still point to laugh as you kind of, destroy yourself. 2 Helpy Abominations, once again, very ballsy. But that's Skaven for you. We class a Helpy Abomination in our discussions between the 3 of us as a distraction card effects model. And having 2 of them there, it increases that thing. But then you got 6 Stormfiends, which can do damage. It can do the business when it needs to, depending on how you want to build them. And like I said, Sky Acolyte's hidden. They're a hidden dream at times. They can be really good. And like you said, when you start applying those lines of just cheap fodder getting in the way whilst you keep bombarding them with the real things, it can frustrate your opponent, but in a good way. And ultimately, it could lead to success. I'll be interested to see how you do with this. I really would if you were to take it.
Yeah, this is so far. This is the list I'm taking to the London GT. I've got a few test games coming up because it'll do me all right in the middle table. So I'm not expecting to win anything. I'm after a 3-2 just to keep up on the stats thing. And yeah, it is worth saying you mentioned the clans give you different benefits. Here's the Warp Spark tokens, which let you to reroll casting, +1 damage or +1 hit and wound in combat. In combat, Stormfiends aren't assigned to be sneered at. Shock gauntlets, the 8 attack, 6 of D6 hits for freeze, -2/2 or -1/2. So they've got the output. Yeah, but as I say, it's the most important thing with these lists, and it's the advice which everyone should be given when they first start: is if you're losing and you're still smiling, you've unlocked the secret of Warhammer. And that fun's not standard, is in what I find fun. Like the people at top tables are having a ton of fun because that's how they like to play the game. Like people will spam out the best thing and they're having a good time because that's how they earn their fun. Like games also have written the rules on that kind of stuff. But it's important to kind of work that stuff out. Rule a call as well. Pick the army that you like looking at. Like your Gitz on the pitch look fantastic. It looks like a rabble of Gloomspite Gitz. They wouldn't turn up and be like, right, Trogs in a line. We're just taking Trogs this time. It's be like, right, who's coming? Who responded to the Facebook ad? Oh, these people are cool. Let's go. It's that kind of stuff is so important to this whole hobby, and that is, I think, start here. When you start building fun lists, you'll start to work out kind of what works. And then when you get to the tournament side, that's when you can start being like, right, now I want to lean more into the spike or more into the joint to kind of get those results, because I do have fun getting good results. I'm not going to lie. getting at my first 3-2, my first 4-1, I loved it. Like even though the 4-1 I think was with slaves, it's like awesome. You know, I got to think if that's a 4-1 3-2. Either way, it was a bronze somewhere, and that stuff will come in time. And that's when you look at other stuff, and there are other ways of building lists, which we'll talk about in the future as well. But that's our first three. What time? We're at 2 hours, but we have quite a big section left. Do we want to
Well,
wrap
I was
this
going to
here?
say, I think it's going to be interesting. If you're happy to, shall we make that a separate show? Because I think that's worth a lot of discussions with what you
I
want
think
to
so
go
too.
further.
Yeah,
Um,
I absolutely think so. So, what we'll do here then is we'll stop this part of the discussion, and what we're going to do next is we're going to start going through the Vanguard boxes because
yeah.
most people, when they start buying, as you see, you start with a Vanguard box, okay, and unless you're that one person in the world who's got infinite money and hasn't tanked a social media website, what you can do is you buy the Vanguard and you want to know what to get next. So we're going to go through some of the Vanguards of the units we're talking about today and talk about what we would add on to it. So that's what we'll do next. We'll advertise that around and we'll throw it onto YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hello, we're on Twitch, go to Twitch or go to YouTube. Do what you want. I don't care. I don't follow you around. I just like numbers. So any last words, Jason?
Nothing really. I mean, it's build lists to have fun. That's what I've learned. Forget everything else. Just do that, and you won't have any problems.
Excellent. Any last words, Paul?
Yeah, admittedly, I know what Jason just said there. You'll come to discover as you play the game more that you'll either be someone who wants to win, which is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. You may be someone who wants to list tech to the heavens, or like Jason, like myself, and like Michael as well, fun lists. So there's no bad way of writing lists. You do what you want. As long as it's a legal entry, thumbs up. Yeah, test, try, and see what may work. You may find a hidden thing that no one else has found.
Absolutely, and that's what's been discovered over time. Because build the list that makes you happy, and it's your money. Spend the money. I can't think of anything better to say than what you two have said. So I'll just say the two names of the people from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Rocksteady and Bebop.
Yeah.
Good night. Go out weird. That's the plan.
Oh god, yeah. Awesome. Well, I guess thank you very much for watching and joining in with us. As this will be on YouTube, this will also be highlighted as well over there. So do give it a watch, give it a tick and a like if you like them. And if you have any other thoughts, do leave messages with us on Twitter, as we do have our Rusty Hammer Twitter page as well. Other than that, thank you very much, and good night.
Good night.